everyone. Welcome back to Ashe Tales TV. We always bring to you people's stories, fiction and nonfiction. I have the privilege to bring this lovely guest to you guys. Her name is Tonya. She's going to talk to us about her experience and the lessons she learned from it, because this segment is called Lessons We Learn. So we have to learn from other people's stories. We have to learn from other people's experiences. That's why we are called Ashe Tales. We all have a story to share. Welcome, Tonya. It's
Hi.
having you here with me again. I know we've talked over time, and I'm glad we have this. By the way, guys, her Instagram handle is going to show on the screen, and just the name alone would get you enticed. Like, what is this about? What is she inspired about? What has been restored? So she's going to share with us all that, and I believe we're going to learn something from today's segment. Okay. All right, over to you, Tonya. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I am Tonya, and I've been married for 7 years. It'll be 8 years in July. We have 2 children, 2 boys, Noah and Eli. And, my Instagram has been a way for me to inspire others and also get inspiration through my life experience. And the main thing that my Instagram is based on is our restored marriage, and so we'll get into that a little bit later, but also just restoration as an individual too, not just in marriage but in my personal relationship with God. So I'm excited, and thank you for the opportunity, Anne.
Thank you so much. I mean, when I saw you, I think we met over a year ago. And I love the messages you've been putting across on social media, talking about marriage, relationships, the things you've learned, how you've been restored. And I love writing stories. And when I hear or see a story or something like that, it just gives me clue. And the first thing when I came across your page, I thought of a story to write. I'm like, how do I connect with her to get more juice of the story? What happened, so that I can write my short story? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to connect with her. I need to hear more, because I just love this. I love not just the story. It's not just a story for us, but I want to put across a message out there. So you've shared a lot about restoration and messages on marriage. And can you give us a little bit? I know it's going to be a little bit personal, but we still want to hear about it. So what were the things that were broken, and what were the things restored, and what are the things that inspired you?
So first of all, when we got married, I do believe that it was, we did not have a strong foundation in God. And I did, I can't speak for my husband as far as when he entered into the marriage, but for me, when I entered into the marriage, it was with the idea that, if it doesn't work, then it just doesn't, there was no connection. Yes, we said our vows, but were we true to them? Did we truly believe them? Did we believe God's word? I always say, getting marital counseling before marriage is vital. And we did, but very minimal, and I just feel like that foundation was not there. There was so many holes and cracks and things in our foundation, which led to us ultimately getting separated. So how it kind of started and what was broken was that, about maybe not even far into our marriage, maybe about 2 years into our marriage, my husband did come to me, and there was some infidelity issues. And, at that time, I had both children. They were very, very young. Eli was an infant, and it was just, I don't think it really had really sunk into my head, what had happened. And I forgave him. Well, I said I forgave him. But I know now that I did not truly forgive him. Because I treated him differently over like a course of 2 whole years, where it was just like we were really distant. And it happened gradually over time, but looking back, you can see things. You see it, and you see it happening fast, and you see what all went on. And I was really hurt. And what happened was during his portion of that infidelity, the church was involved. So I felt like that I had been hurt, not only by my spouse, but by the church, and so it was like, it was a really tough blow, and it took me so long. And I know that the reason why it took me so long to get over it, and I'm not going to say get over it, but get through it, I'll say, is because I was not leaning on God to get through it, And so I started to think of myself better than my husband. It's like, well, you did this and I didn't do this. I pray and you don't. I read my Bible and you don't. I go to church, you don't. And those sorts of things. So it started to become like a comparison, which you don't want to do that in marriage, So once that settled in, then I started to pretty much act out of character, because I opened up a door for Satan when I did not forgive. When I didn't forgive from my heart. I said I forgave, but I didn't, and so I acted it. And I really feel like one thing that was against us is the fact that neither one of us had any strong upbringing in church. I mean, I did eventually, but it wasn't until I was about a late teen, maybe about 15, 16 years old. And even by that time, you're kind of set in your ways, so to speak. I'm a rebellious teenager doing whatever I want. And yeah, my mom is like, she's transformed, but it's like you have to get all those other years of flesh and secular living out of you,
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, we didn't have any like anyone in our family that had been married. Even to this day, there's like 2 couples in my whole entire family that are married, and I'm one of them. So it's like, so I mean, it's when you don't have people to disciple you,
Mm-hmm.
it's rough. And I really feel like even you offering this experience helps, so that people can learn, because life happens.
Right.
And so we physically separated for a year. And I will tell you, Anne, during that year, I was in an apartment and my husband was living at home. And it was pretty much like a divorce. I mean, really, because, we did every other weekend with the children, and that we kind of came up with that ourselves. But I mean, it was a very, I would say, like, organized separation that we came up with on our own, differently. We became distant. And then I ultimately fell into infidelity. So here we are, 2 people that are, we were emotionally separated, I say, for about a year before we actually physically separated. And it was my idea for us to separate. I mean, I felt like our marriage was a mess. Okay. It was terrible. And so I said, we are like 2 roommates that don't get along,
Right.
we're not good roommates, we're like 2 bad roommates, and we have these children. I mean, it's so much tension in the air. You're sleeping downstairs, I'm upstairs. I mean, it was a really big deal, And I would not recommend anyone to physically separate from their spouse. One, because it just leaves too much room for Satan to move in and start doing things, And so when I was there, my husband ended up getting a girlfriend, and they were heavily involved, to where they ended up moving in with each other. And I was separated. I did stop that relationship that I was trying to have. But I mean, I was just living alone, and not really seeking God until there was a moment. And I'm so thankful that I was in a group of women, through my son's football team. And we started a Bible study. And it was a really good experience, because in that experience, I was able to learn about some other women's marriages and different things that they had gone through, and their just their strength in God. And that's what inspired me. So that's where the inspired portion of my Instagram is, where others have inspired me, and not really me inspiring others, because I really like to look to other women that have wisdom, and that can teach me things, because I want to learn,
Yeah.
learn about you, from you and different women. Like, because I feel like people can be out here and have faithful marriages, have strong marriages and thriving marriages in God. And they do not have to go through what we went through. I would not want anyone to have to go through separation to get there, you know? And I had a moment with those women and with my children. I would say my children were the ones that I looked to, or I would say God prompted me in my relationship with my children, because I always say, you know, I love my children, and we do, you know, but I did not grasp that in me loving them, me showing them to be unfaithful or to be separated from your spouse. Like in my relationship with God, I don't know about anyone else, but for me, God showed me that if you love them, this is not what you would be showing them.
Right.
Yeah, you take care of them, you feed them, you give them all their necessities, but what is really at stake is their spiritual health, you know, like,
yeah.
And if I'm showing them something opposing to the word of God, then that is not love, because ultimately they can lead them to hell, you know. So what kind of love is that? And that's where God really convicted me. That's where my conviction came. And I was speaking with someone last week or sometime, I can't even remember, and I was saying that I really had to take a moment and sit down with my oldest son, Noah. And I'm like, I had to sit down with him and apologize to him, like literally say, you know, I'm sorry for showing. I don't even think he really understood, but
oh, trust me, he understood it. Yeah, he did.
For me too, I'm like, I need to apologize to this young man, because what I'm showing, I can't apologize for what dad is doing, but what I'm showing you is not something I wouldn't even want you doing it. So why would I do it in front of you, you know?
Yeah.
And in the beginning, you know, I was like, I want my marriage, you know, Lord, guide me. What do I do? Because at this point, it's promising. He has a whole girlfriend that he's living with, you know, and he actually asked for a divorce. He asked for a divorce. He never, like, took any papers out, which was promising, you know, that little bit of promise, but
yeah,
he did ask for one, and he talked about it, I guess. And so I purposed in my mind that I did want my marriage, but what I did was I started to try to fix things on my own. I started to, you know, I mean, I was praying and reading my Bible and all that, but it was like for my marriage. You know what I'm saying? Like, pretty much, I don't know if you've heard someone say this, but it's like, God, I'm going to give you this, you know, as long as you give me this in return, sort of, you know, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I did that, and my husband was not interested. He was living his life and doing his thing. And I had a friend, and you know, who told me, and another thing that I can say is that having sound counsel from people, not just people telling you what they think you want to hear, but telling you what God would tell you, you know, people that would allow God to use them to speak to you. And this one friend I have, she told me, she was like, you know, and she calls me Renee, but she's like, Renee, if you do not get your marriage, you can't go back to the way you were living before. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that she said, at the time I did not want to hear it. I was like, okay, whatever, you know, but I'm glad she said that, because I don't think that I would have continued having a relationship with God, you know, had she not said that. And so at that point, it was a pivotal turn in my relationship with God, where he gave me the grace to allow him to minister to me, to comfort me, to talk to me. And it was no longer about the goal of getting back to my husband in a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah. I really love that point. Sometimes we want to fix things by ourselves. This is what I want, and I'm going to try to fix it. God, just stay behind me and back me up. No, we should put him in front of it, you know, let him play out everything for us. Let him fix everything for us. Just tell him, I'm just here. Whatever you need me to do, I'm going to do it. But you take the wheels, do everything by yourself. And I mean, there are so many instances in my life that I've learned that, and I'm like, what was I thinking?
Right.
What was I thinking I can do this by myself? So yeah, I really love that. And Okay, so I know things are better now, much better from what I can see. And I really feel in my heart that it's much better for you and your family right now. So, comparing the present and the past, how do you think things are?
I think they are much better. I think what one was getting a strong relationship with God, or just striving towards it. I mean, there's always room for improvement, but just living, we are more conversant, we communicate better. You know, everything is not perfect, but we're able to come, hey, let's talk about this thing, because back to that, I don't want it to become a cycle or something that we have to go through over again. But it's more peace. I can say that there's so much more peace. It's so much more love and commitment, and it is a daily decision and a daily sacrifice to give of ourselves to God first, and in doing so, we will treat our spouses better. But we've been able to thrive, and I think like these opportunities to share our story helps our marriage too. Even us talking about it. Sometimes we do have to visit those dark places and talk about it because it's necessary. But then in it, we see God, and we see God's hand in it, and we're able to reflect and know, that God is ultimately in control as long as we allow Him to be. So, I mean, just the way that we are able to address issues is much better. There is no distance. There is no, sleeping in separate rooms and all that, thank God. But so it has been a good journey. And so my prayer is that it just continues to be good, and we can continue to share our story. My hope, my husband does not like to be on camera and all that sort of thing, but my hope is that one day we can share this together,
Right.
other people, like couples or men, can understand it, because his point of view is very strong, and I can't really speak to it because he's not here. But I do know that in my experience, while we were separated, I ended up getting a phone call from him. My lease was up in January, and he called me. It was either like towards the end of November or early December. He called, and he knew that my lease for my apartment would be up in January. So he called me and he said, don't renew your lease. I want you to come home. And so I wasn't going to hesitate. I'm like, okay, but but I also know that the friend I was telling you about, her husband and her, they do Bible studies, and they have a really thriving marriage, and they have a strong foundation in Christ. And I know that he reached out to her husband too, as I was reaching out to her. And I think that God put them in our lives so that we would have people here on earth to connect with and help us through this. So while I was, I did not know through the process, but she had called me, and she's like, Antonio called, and he was asking about some scriptures and things like that. And so I know that God was working through him as well. It's just I didn't see it, and so that's another thing. We can't always go off of what we see, because like I said, it did not look promising. He did ask me, he did, insinuate getting a divorce. So it looked terrible. But my comfort, and one thing that I, even in this life now, whether it's with my children or with my job or anything, one thing I always stand on is be still. Because when I try to change things or fix things, then one, I'm making it much longer than when it needs to be. Just imagine had I not been trying to fix it for months. We probably would have been back together sooner if I would have just not even tried to do anything of myself and just really allowed God to work and just focused on God. But I'm not, like you said, we learn from our tales, we learn from our stories. And would I do it differently? Absolutely. But I am glad that through my mistake and bad choices, God was able to change things around, for me and my husband.
So, I know you mentioned something earlier about truly forgiving. Do you think if you had truly forgiven and dealt with everything at that time, things would have played out different? You guys wouldn't have ended up separating? And
Absolutely.
what would you advise someone going through similar
Ab-
situation or something like that?
that unfor and now I understand why people say that forgiveness, yes, is for the other person, but it's ultimately for you. Because it festered. I was bitter, angry, and I don't, some people, I know in the moment you do not think that you can forgive, or maybe you may not think that someone is worthy of forgiveness, but who are we to say whether someone is worthy or not? Because God forgives us and we are not worthy. Jesus died for our sins and I am not worthy, of that. But he did that, and through his grace, he gets me through each and every day. Listen, girl, I have to live on Jesus' grace, because there's no way I'll be able to do anything without
him. Yeah.
But it's like you have to purpose, even if it's, because even when I went through, I don't say that, it's the worst thing, because I'm sure people have been through even worse situations where they may not feel like they can forgive, but you have to purpose, one, pray and allow God to give you the grace to be able to forgive, and pray for that. If you feel like you don't have it, ask him for it. I mean, ask him, Lord, please give me the grace to forgive, because I can't do it in and of myself. I just can't. And then you have to do it every day. It's not like for me, it was, to be honest, I don't even think I told him I forgave him. I just, in my mind, I felt like I forgave him because I stayed, so, you know what I mean? So it's like, he's like, do you forgive me? Yeah, I'm here, but, oh, I'm not,
yeah.
I forgive you, and that unforgiveness is a sin. So that sin in my heart, and it's a sin that deals with the heart. So that sin in my heart, just making it hard, that's really what it did. It's kind of like I turned into Pharaoh, and I became really, really hardened in my heart and really bitter. I thought highly of myself because I'm like, well, you did this and I didn't. I was full of. So it's like that one thing of unforgiveness turned into this huge mess. He wouldn't have had that room to have a girlfriend and live with her. You see what I'm saying? So all that stuff, it was just a domino effect, one bad thing after the other. So I would say to anyone, just purpose in your heart to forgive. Yes, it's hard, and you will have emotions and feelings, but as you allow God to work with you through that forgiveness, it'll get better. Girl, it was a time where I could not talk about this without crying. Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I couldn't even talk for a minute. And here I am now, I can talk for hours. And yes, time has moved on, but I know that God has helped me with that forgiveness, because I'm able to talk about it and I don't have to be bitter. I don't have to hold it against my husband and say, oh, you did, it's no longer an issue. Yeah, I remember it. I won't ever forget it, but it doesn't affect me,
Yeah. Thank you for all the goodies you've poured out on us today. You didn't just learn this just for yourself. You learned it so that we can all benefit from it. It might not even actually be in a marriage situation, but also about something else, because you've talked about unforgiveness. You've talked about honesty in a way, honesty with yourself, honesty with others too. You've touched base on so many things. And guys, I do hope you've taken something away from this story. I'm so glad I had the time and the opportunity to talk with Tonya, and we'll keep in touch. And if you have any other things to share, we'll always connect. I'm gonna be stalking you on Instagram.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Anne.
Thank you so much. And guys, that's all we have for today. That was another story that we've had to share. And I believe you learned something from it. You took something away from it. If you want to connect with Tonya to ask her more questions, her Instagram page is on the screen and also be on the description box below. If you also have a story you want to share with us, please send an email to us. You could see all our information, our contact information down on the description box below, and also on our website, which is on the screen.
Thank
Until
you.
next time, bye
Bye.
bye.